Okay, so sir, I'm unable to share my screen. So if you can kindly enable me. Yes.
Yeah, I am giving you. Now you can.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. Okay, so are the slides visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So, all right. So, in our last class, we ended the class with the importance of memoing, right? And I had discussed some example. One specific example I had discussed. This is another one. If you are having a long excerpt, meaning that if you have a long piece of data, textual data, which you want to analyze and form memo out of it, you can consider this type of memoing example. So everywhere you see that in the last time also I had shown you that there were two different parts of the memo. The first one was the researcher's insight or understanding of what was being told in that particular interview. Okay, and in the second paragraph, it was about the researcher's realization that what else needs to be done. Okay, here also you can see if you look at the description, there are two different parts of the memo. The first is where the researcher is making certain notes about the overall whatever the subject told. Laura, she was the subject, so whatever she told in the interview, that is being interpreted in the first part. Then in the next part, you can see that there are certain questions framed, like what does this mean to the formation of her identity? I hope all of you can see it in the second line of the second paragraph. In the memo writing section, you can see there is a question formed. Okay, so these type of questions are for the researcher's own understanding. All right, so this type of question actually leads to the theoretical sampling part. Okay, so maybe at the when this interpretation is done, the researcher might consider including this particular question as well. Might consider exploring this particular question as well. Okay, so a memo can be about what the subject is telling us, and at the same time what we think about the entire phenomena. Okay, which is leading to theoretical sampling in this case. All right, so I guess I discussed a lot about memoing in the last class. So today I'll move on to the next step or other steps which we need to follow in grounded theory research. So another important what we need to do is sorting. Okay, sorting in grounded theory. So what is this sorting? Once the short notes or the memos are prepared, the collected information or the data is sorted in order to organize them in proper order. So we have to put them in proper sequence here. Sorting helps in putting all the data in proper order, which leads to proper linkage of information and ideas. Researcher may also get an insight of some more relevant information and ideas which are not revealed during the preparation of memos, because memos are very specific, right? You might be considering one page of textual data. Okay, out of those one page of textual data, you might be forming 5 to 8 different memos, right? For each specific section, you are forming a particular piece of memo. You are writing memo. Now, this individual memo will not give you a very clear idea about what the person is telling you. It's just giving you an idea about what the person is telling in a specific section of the interview, right? So that's why at the end of an interview, you might be dealing with 15 to 20 different memos, right? And you don't know what to do about it. So there you need the step of sorting. So in sorting, what we do is that we try to put all these memo in a proper sequence so that it forms a continuity between what we are perceiving about the the subject is telling us about that particular phenomenon or that event, right? So this will further help us in integrating all the information together to form different categories. Okay. Another important step in analysis of data in grounded theory research is coding, right? So in our last class, we were discussing that coding is a step which basically precedes memoing, right? So in coding, we will be looking at specific, we will be breaking down the entire textual data into small parts, okay, small codes, very important sections, okay, which will help us to understand the data in a short form. So there can be different types of coding. Generally, we do rely on open coding or axial coding or selective coding. Okay. So what are these different types of coding? Let's see. These are also relevant in thematic analysis. So I'll discuss this again when we will be discussing interview technique. Okay. So in open coding, this involves line by line coding, where concepts and key phrases are identified and highlighted and moved into subcategories, then categories. Okay. So it's like a line by line coding that we are doing in open coding. This breaks the data down into conceptual components, and the researcher can start to theorize or reflect on what they are reading and understanding, making sense of the data. The data from each participant will be constantly compared for similarities. So here we are looking into specific lines, okay? From each line, we will be taking out certain important parts, okay? Which will be forming the codes, right? Now, after we are going through, 4 or 5 different lines, and we are getting maybe 2 codes from each line on an average. Okay, you are getting 8 to 10 codes. Now, these 8 to 10 codes are very similar to each other, forming a subcategory. And then from the entire textual data, you might be getting these, 2, 3, 4 different subcategories, which will be forming one specific category. So it's like a hierarchy in which it works. All right. So that's the open coding. Axial coding, at this stage, relationships are identified between the categories and connections are identified. So axial coding is done once the different categories are formed. Okay, so categories, when you have sufficient number of categories already with you, so you can look into the relationships between these different categories, look at the different connections and try to recognize those connections between these different categories, right? That's axial coding. And selective coding involves identifying the core category and methodically relating it to other categories. Relationships must be authenticated and categories refined. Categories are then integrated together and a grounded theory identified. So you start with open coding. On the basis of this open coding, you identify a number of subcategories. Then you are forming from the subcategories, you are forming the categories. Then you are going for axial coding, where you are looking at the relationships between these different categories. Okay, and you are trying to see how each of these categories are related to each other. And finally, when you are able to recognize all those, you are going for selective coding, where you are trying to find one core category in this case. So there might be, 10 different categories which you are seeing, and you have recognized the relationships between these 10 different um, categories. So that will give you the insight, and it will help you to identify one core category, which is the main category here. Okay, there might be 2-3 core categories as well. Okay, and these core categories are like the soul of the entire pattern which you are seeing. So one particular core category might be related to 4 or 5 other categories. Okay, and once you have identified these core categories, it will help you form the grounded theory as a whole. So the grounded theory is actually based upon these core categories. Okay, so uh, in this case, analytical notes are encouraged when we are going through the process of coding. Analytical notes are encouraged, which are notes to oneself to explain thought patterns in relation to the data analysis. It's like similar to the memo writing. Final theory is usually generated from the integration of several analytical memos. Okay, so in the process of this coding that we are doing, we will be doing memo writing as well. Okay, and through this different memo writing, while we are writing down these different memos, it will actually help us understand how each of these categories, subcategories are related to each other, how we can identify one single category out of it, and we can identify the core category out of it. And finally, we are able to form the grounded theory. Okay. I hope this is clear to all of you. Core category. So this core category is the chief phenomena around which the categories are built. Theory is generated around a core category. Core category should account for the variations found in the data. That is, the categories will relate to it in some way. Somehow these different other categories will be related to the core category. The categories demonstrate how the core category is situated in the lives of those participating in the study. Right. So I'll give you an example here. Maybe a researcher is trying to find out how adolescents they adapt. Adolescents from broken families, they adapt to a new situation. Okay, or when they go to a new college or university, whatever, how do they adapt? Right. So maybe that is what the researcher is trying to find out. Now, after interviewing a number of adolescents, such kind of adolescents, maybe 4, 5, 6 different adolescents, the textual data is then analyzed. All right. And maybe at the end of these coding and memoing, the researcher finds out that they're able to adapt well, because it all depends upon their resilience level. Okay, so if the resilience level is high, which is possible because they are from broken homes, so if the resilience level is high, then they're adapting very well. If the resilience is low because of some trauma associated with their broken family status, they are facing difficulty in adapting to the new situation. So it all depends upon the resilience of the adolescents who are trying to adapt to this new situation, right? So in that case, the researcher might be building a grounded theory around this core category, that is resilience. So, one might say that in this entire process of adapting to a new situation coming from a broken home, it is just the resilience that matters a lot. And the resilience actually plays an important role in affecting different other factors, which is making the adolescent either adapting very well or not adapting at all to a new situation, right? So that's about the core category. Okay, hope it is clear. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Writing in grounded theory. After the memos are sorted, the next stage towards preparation of theory is writing. Now, in any qualitative research, we have to keep in mind that the writing is of extreme importance, right? How you are presenting your analyzed data. Of course, it is also very important in quantitative research, but in quantitative research, since it's quantitative, you have statistical evidences and all, it's easier, much easier. You have some significant relationship. You can you can write that, yes, there is a significant association between these two different variables. But in a qualitative research, we have no such kind of background or such kind of evidences. And that's why it is extremely difficult to conclude something like that. Yet, in qualitative research, we are looking at associations between different variables. Okay, and there is a possibility that the researcher has to prove or disprove this association between a number of variables. So that's why writing becomes very important. How you are presenting this entire data is very important. So the grounded theorist arranges, relates, and puts the collected information into words. Therefore, in this step, the researcher tries to give a shape as well as meaning to the relevant data. Okay, so you are getting a lot of textual data, you are getting video recordings, you are getting audio recordings, you are getting pictures, you are getting some archival list, etc., etc. So many different things you are getting, right? But then what? Unless you relate all these, connect all these together, so find some pattern of association among all these together, it is meaningless, right? So in the writing stage, you are giving meaning by associating all these different type of data which you have got in the form of a theory. This may be said to be a crucial stage, as it is this stage in which the researcher interprets the information on the basis of his or her own perspectives. The collected information is also linked with the existing relevant literature in order to put the theory in a scholarly context. And it's important to note that in qualitative research, when you are reporting, it requires some scholarly effort. Okay, you have to be extremely, the language should be flawless, the understanding should be scientific. At the same time, it requires some level of artistic perspectives, because you are presenting, it's like a story that you are presenting to your readers, so that they find the interest, they find the motivation to go on with whatever you have written, right? So in the absence of statistical evidences and other kind of backgrounds, it is only and only your writing which will keep them glued to the report which you have prepared. So that's why writing stage is very important in grounded theory research. Okay, relevance of the grounded theory. Data or the information collected and the theory generated with the help of grounded theory is very significant, because number one, the grounded theorists prepare report on the basis of information collected with the help of various sources, which increases the chances of reliability and validity of the theory. So whatever information we are putting in, those needs to be collected from different sources, various sources. And when we are considering all these different information from various sources together, it automatically increases the reliability and validity of the theory which we have formed, right? The grounded theory approach gives an opportunity for exploring the facts and analyzing the causal reasons behind those facts, right? So it's not just exploring what is happening behind a particular phenomena, right? It's also about what are the different causes which are leading to this particular phenomena. Okay, so we are answering two things, what and why. in grounded theory research. What is happening and why is it happening? Okay. It is an inductive type of research which has its basis or is grounded on the base of observations and data collected, right? So it's an inductive form of research. It means that we look at specific behaviors, we look at specific responses, and on the basis of those responses, we try to find a pattern. Then we try to understand, the pattern itself, which ultimately leads to, forming some hypotheses, and then we are, on the basis of those different hypotheses, we are forming the theory. So it's an inductive process in which we are forming the theory in this case. Okay. Grounded theory approach also provides a base to specify how a knowledge base should be changed in the light of new information, right? So the first thing that we discussed about grounded theory was that it's very, very flexible, right? So it gives us a lot of flexibility to keep on modifying our research questions and the methods and all those different things, until we feel that yes, we have reached a stage where no more new data is coming out, and that's how we are arriving at a position where we are able to form a particular theory. Okay, so this grounded theory approach therefore provides a base to specify, okay, how this particular knowledge base can be changed. The existing knowledge which was there, how can we change it in the light of new information, and what new things we can bring about in the understanding of that particular existing theory. Grounded theory data often categorizes data, which further forms a basis for organizing and reporting results. Okay, so because it is very much grounded on the data and it is very systematic in its approach, okay, it helps us to categorize data in a much more systematic way, which ultimately leads to the organization and reporting of results in a much better way, right? So these are the reasons why a researcher should be going for a grounded theory approach in doing a qualitative research. Okay. Applications, it is often used in formulation of policies and program evaluation research, since it can more effectively help in solving the unanswered questions, right? It can also be used to analyze the consumer's demands and preferences in the existing market. For market research, grounded theory approach is very much used, right? Approach can also be used to analyze product positioning and advertising opportunities. Okay, some researcher wants to understand what kind of advertising will actually attract more viewers or more customers. So for such kind of understanding also one can go for a grounded theory approach. It is one of the best theoretical approaches that can be used in the field of education, management, women's studies, information studies, politics, communities, etc. Helps in understanding, analyzing, and describing human psychology and experiences. Okay, so all these different type of research can be conducted using a grounded theory approach, and it has been found to be extremely effective in almost all. If you go to Google Scholar and you search for a grounded theory approach, you will find that you will get papers from across all these different disciplines. All right, so that actually speaks a lot about the applications of a grounded theory approach. So I'll give you an example as a demonstration of how grounded theory approach can be used. So this study was conducted by Baraini, Carter and Evans et al. In 2011. So they the title is How to Do Grounded Theory Study of Worked Example of a Study of Dental Practices. Okay. They use a grounded theory methodology to investigate social processes in private dental practices in New South Wales, okay, Australia. So the initial research questions were, what was the process of implementing or not implementing the protocols from the perspective of dentists, practice staff, and patients? How did, that was the first one. And the second question was, how did this process vary? All right. So these two were the initial research questions. Now, this was the study design that followed. So an open beginning and research questions were formed at the first stage. Then ethical approvals were taken since it was in a medical research. And then initial purposive sampling was done. So in this case, they interviewed, in the initial purposive sampling, they interviewed one dentist and 5 practice staffs. Okay, so that was the initial stage. Then the memo writing after each interview was done. Then in the second phase, they did interview 12 patients. Okay, 12 different patients they interviewed. So within bracket, you can see they have given a note, 5 unreliable. Okay, so then in the next phase, they went for data analysis through coding and memo writing. Again, ethics, modification, submission, and approval. So on the basis of whatever they got from these different interviews of all these people, they modified their method. Okay, the different questions they were going to ask and all those things they modified. And then they again submitted the proposal for ethical approval. Right? So there were certain alterations in both dentists or practice staff and patients interview question routes. Right? Then they went for theoretical sampling. Theoretical sampling they could achieve by interviewing again 3 different dentists, 5 practice staffs. Right? And memo writing was done after each interview. Then again, they did some coding and memo writing, and they did some modifications. Again, the modified proposal was submitted for ethical approval. Then again, they returned for interviewing the again 1 dentist, two therapists or hygienists, 1 manager, 6 practice staffs, and memo writing was done after each interview. Okay. Then again, analysis was done, memo writing and coding was done. Then again, some modifications were done. It was ethical approval was again obtained. Then again, they interviewed 3 reliable patients. Memo writing was done after each interview, repeat analysis and ethical approval, obtaining ethical approval. Then again, they interviewed 2 unreliable patients and memo writing was done. Again, they did some analysis and coding and modified the proposal, submitted for ethical approval. And finally, they interviewed a lot of people. Okay, 1 dentist who was the owner as well as in the control group. Okay, owner of the entire clinic. They interviewed another dentist who was an employee in a particular clinic, but was in the control group. Then again, 1 dentist who was owner and in the control group. Then again, another dentist who was an employee and in the control group. Then 1 dentist who was owner and in the intervention group, and 1 dentist who was employee and in the intervention group. Memo writing was done after each interview. Repeat D means again they analyze the data using different types of coding and memo writing. And finally, they did the interpretation where they mapped different concepts. Theoretical memo writing was done and further refining of the concepts were done. Okay. So that's the entire process of the method that they followed. Yes, such tedious process, because in grounded theory, that is how we need to do it. Okay, so you have to, that's the concept of theoretical sampling that I was talking about in my previous class, that until you feel that whatever data you are getting is sufficient enough to generate a theory, you have to go on do it again and again and again. So it's an iterative process. Okay, so that's why you saw that multiple times analysis were done, coding were done, and then again some modifications were made in the question pattern and all. They added or deleted some questions, then again submitted it for an ethical approval, and so it went on like that. Okay, in an iterative process until they reach the stage of theoretical sampling. Okay, once they reached that point, they did the final interpretation part. Okay, here you can find that I've given some examples of memo writing after interviewing a practice manager. Okay, a manager who was there in the who was working as a manager of the clinic. So you see the initial part, this upper window is actually showing the actual verbatim interview of the manager. So this was quite an eye-opening interview in the sense that the practice manager was very direct, practical, and open in his account. So this is a memo written after the interview was done. So in his accounts, the bottom line is that this preventive program is not profitable. Dentists will do it for giving back to the community, not to earn money from it. I'm so glad we had this interview. Otherwise, I'm not sure if someone would be so upfront about it. So my question really is that the reason why dentists have not adopted it in other practices? And what about other patients who come here who are not enrolled in the research program? Does the dentist in charge treat them all as being part of the program? Or it was just an impression from the interview and what I saw here during my time in the practice? Or will the dentist continue doing it in the next future? Okay. Then again, I definitely learned that dentistry in private practice is a business. At the end of the day, a target has to be achieved and the dentist is driven by it. During the dentist's interview, there was a story about new patients being referred to the practice because the way they were treating patients now. But right now, I'm just not sure. I really need to check that. So you see, it's like a note to oneself. The researcher is writing all these different notes to oneself. So it's like, you know, as a way of categorizing all these different memos, you can write like believing plus embracing plus developing. Is it adapting? Is it equal to adapting or not? Okay, so through all these different interviews, the researcher actually tried to explore all these different questions, these understandings, these different categories which they are forming. All right. So I'll stop here for grounded theory research, and you can ask questions if you have any questions or any doubt that or any concern that you would like to share. And I'll give maybe a few minutes for that, and then we can start with a new topic. So yes, if there's any new question or doubts, anything. Okay, so is everything clear to all of you about grounded theory research? Are you all able to understand the process, the steps to be followed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. So yes.
You described in the last few classes also that there are various steps, means various types of analysis which we can use. So on what basis we will decide that we should choose grounded theory? What means, what are the conditions which should suit that would make us to choose grounded theory? Why we would choose only grounded theory, leaving other things? That is what I want to know.
Yeah, so actually that depends upon what you actually want to study or explore in your research. Okay, so for example, all these things which you just, which we discussed in grounded theory, if you are going for a thematic analysis, we will be looking into only the coding part. Okay, the coding part which we discussed today, only that part is included in thematic analysis method. Okay, so it's a much simpler one, right? So if you are going, if you do not have much time, if you just want to understand a method or a phenomena, maybe to some extent only you want to understand that particular phenomena. Okay, what is happening? You just want to explore it. You can go for a thematic analysis or some other method if you want. But if you want to generate a theory, okay, then you have to go for a grounded theory approach. Thematic analysis will help you understand and recognize the different themes which are emerging, those themes which are probably explaining a particular phenomenon, but it will not give you an in-depth understanding of the phenomena or the event as a whole, so that you can actually form a theory. So this requires much in-depth understanding of the process, which you can do in a grounded theory approach.
Okay, ma'am, my next question is,
yes,
since grounded theory takes lot of, means you have to do lot of repetition and things
yes,
like that.
yes.
So what is the timeline that is being given for such qualitative research, ma'am?
There is no such kind of timeline. So it will take, as much time it will take. You can't say that, okay, I will finish a grounded theory approach in 2 weeks time or 1 month's time. It's all about the theoretical sampling. If you if you have the proper set of questions with you already, then it might probably take little time. But when you are, that's why it requires some experience and a good understanding of what you are trying to explore in your research. So if you have a very good understanding of it, probably you will be including, the correct type of questions, and you will be considering all those different stakeholders for the interview and all right at the beginning. Okay, and then probably it will take some maybe less time, but sometimes you cannot say something like that. I know someone who did her PhD using a grounded theory approach, and it took her around a total of around 5 years time to complete the entire process. Okay, so since it's a very tedious process, and generally when we are doing a research like that, it's a much in-depth process, and we generally look into very complicated phenomena. Okay, trying to understand some complicated behavior in a complicated situation like that. So there it can be, it can take a lot of time as well.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
And since you talked about that qualitative research requires much of experience. Yes, as we saw about grounded theory also, you cannot reach up to the thing unless and until you know how it has to be done. So in such researches, means do we get people who would guide us onto this?
Yes, and definitely.
How long? And
there
how
are,
long?
How
Yes,
long?
and how long it takes for us to learn these things, ma'am?
See, it's all about the training process. Okay, someone can keep working under someone's supervision. Generally, in qualitative research or quantitative research, whatever research you are doing, it's good if you start with working under someone's supervision. So there are professors, there are academicians who are experts in conducting qualitative research. They have good understanding of it, and they guide their students and scholars to do such kind of research. So you get such kind of people everywhere. In fact, in our country, fortunately, we have many professors, many such kind of academicians and experts who actually carry out qualitative research only. Okay, they are not very much into quantitative research. So you'll get a lot of professors for that matter. And about the time taken to gain that expertise, well, it depends upon the hands-on training that you are doing. Okay, you can have theoretical knowledge, you can read a lot of books about it, and you can have theoretical knowledge, but unless and until you are doing it hands-on, you will not gain that much experience. So once you start doing it, you can start with taking some baby steps. You can start with conducting small just exploring some small research problems, interviewing two, three people, and try to understand, break it down into codes and memos and like that. So you can start with that, and gradually you will gain a lot of experience to conduct a full-fledged research using a grounded theory approach. So it's okay. It's hard to tell that how much time it will require.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. So if there are no further questions, then maybe we can start off with the next topic, which is ethnography. So I'm starting it today because as I see, we do not have much time. We need to cover a lot of different topics in the remaining classes. That's why I'll start with ethnography research today itself. So are the slides visible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, well, ethnographic research is, again, a very interesting type of qualitative research that we do. Mostly it is used in anthropology. It all actually started in the discipline of anthropology, but later on, different people from different disciplines in sociology, psychology, and other different disciplines, they also started working with ethnographic research, and it has been found to be extremely successful in certain types of settings. Okay, so let's see, what is ethnography? So it can be briefly defined as the systematic study of people and cultures. Okay, how people as a group of people, how they are behaving, how they are interacting among each other, and how or to what extent their culture is influencing their behavior, their thought patterns, their feelings, their manifestations of different rituals, etc. So it is designed, this ethnographic research is designed to explore cultural phenomena where the researcher observes society from the point of view of the subject of the society, right? You see, here, the main focus is on the subject himself or herself, right? And generally in ethnographic research, there is the culture factor, which we consider a lot, okay? How the cultural phenomena, all these different types of cultural phenomena actually differ, and how the subject is perceiving a cultural phenomena from his or her end. So it's a means to represent graphically and in writing the culture of a group. Ethnography is a qualitative research method where researchers observe and or interact with a study's participant in their real life environment. So I'll give you an example here. Suppose you see, for us, who are Bengalis, okay, for us, Durga Puja carries a lot of meaning. I guess all of you know about Durga Puja, right? So now this Durga Puja is a religious ritual which actually started with some religious ritualistic practices, right? But it gained the status of it's like a cultural heritage, and it's known globally. You go to any country, you will see that people are conducting Durga Pujas there, and they're enjoying, and so many different societies actually they participate. And in Durga Puja, although it's specific to Bengalis, but if you come to Kolkata, I don't know where where from you all are joining these classes, but if you come to Kolkata, you will see that Durga Puja is such a celebration, which is where people from all different religious backgrounds, they participate. Okay, it's not just specific to the Bengalis or Hindus per se. So all our friends from different religious backgrounds, they participate in the Durga Puja. Okay, and last year I went to Bangladesh. There also, in the city of Dhaka and Chittagong and all those different places, Bangladesh is a declared Muslim country, but there also people celebrate Durga Puja like anything. And people from all different religious backgrounds, they are participating, they are celebrating, they are buying new clothes and eating a lot, etc., etc. So it's not about the religion anymore, it's about the culture that we are talking about. So suppose a researcher wants to understand that how this Durga Puja as a celebration, it is grounded in our culture. Okay, how the cultural factors are influencing it, or how Durga Puja as a celebration is influencing our culture. Okay, so the researcher can conduct a research, an ethnographic research, in order to understand it by studying all those people who are participating in the Durga Puja. Okay, in the real life environment. So when the Durga Puja is actually happening, how the people who are participating, how they are perceiving it, how they are perceiving this entire celebration as a whole. Is it just a religious ritual for them, or it's something more? Right. So that can be a good example of ethnographic research. Clear? So I'll give you some examples here. It all started with ethnographic research, although these days we look into different phenomena, different cultural phenomena as the subject matter of ethnographic research. But towards the beginning, ethnographic research actually started with studying different tribes. Okay, the ritualistic practices in different tribes. So some very famous examples I have put in here. So the first one is Paul Willey's ethnographic study of working class youth culture. Okay, so in his famous work, Learning to Labor, Willys conducts a series of interviews and observations within a school with the aim of discovering how and why working class kids get working class jobs. He suggested that on the basis of all those interviews and observations, he suggested that working class children tend to have counter school culture and oppositions to academics and authorities. This would lead them to workplaces with similar environment and working class dominance. Okay, so that's why people, youths who are belonging to working class, they actually go for working class jobs rather than being in academics or being in the authority positions. They prefer to work in the working class jobs. Okay, so that was his understanding of a particular phenomena that occurs in the among the working class youth. Okay. Another example, Kristen R. Gottschie's ethnographic study on post-communist Bulgaria. So in her work, Gottschie argued that many East European women, Bulgaria is one such country, so East European women would actually fare better than men in newly competitive labor markets because of the cultural capital that they had acquired before 1989. She further examined the shifting gender relations of Muslim minorities after communism and the intersections of Islamic beliefs and practices with the ideological remains of Marxism and Leninism. So she actually did a very, tried to understand how, it's like a classic gender study that she did using an ethnographic study paradigm. So she wanted to look into why, women, they were performing better than men in the competitive labor markets of Bulgaria. Okay, so she tried to understand it from the perspectives of their religion and the philosophies which existed there. So the complex interrelationship between these different factors, which led the women perform better than the men. Another example, Napoleon Chagnon's long-term ethnographic fieldwork among the Yanomamo, that's indigenous tribal Amazonians. So, they were the Amazonians, so some tribes who were staying in the Amazon. Okay, and in his study, he used an evolutionary approach to understand social behavior in terms of genetic relatedness. So his work was centered on the analysis of violence among tribal people, and using socio-biological analysis, he has advanced the argument that among the Yanomami violence is fueled by an evolutionary process in which successful warriors have more offspring. Okay, so that's a biological explanation of why such kind of tribal people, they were so very violent. Okay, and this he found in his ethnographic research, he found that violence was actually related to their somehow their reproductive health. Okay, there is a biological connection between the two things. Okay, so successful warriors, okay, they were able to produce more offspring, so they could reproduce more, and that was the motivating factor for their violence. Okay, so that was his discovery using an ethnographic research approach. Okay. So there are many other different, famous ethnographic studies. If you just try to search, you will find a lot of those things. So we will look into the key features of ethnographic studies here. First thing is, such kind of ethnographic studies usually focus on very few cases, maybe just one, but in great detail. So they might be looking into one single tribe, one single group, okay, one single phenomena, whatever, okay, but in great details. Often involve working with previously unstudied phenomenon. Okay, so something which was not explored before. Okay, so that's what that's the newness, that's the uniqueness of any ethnographic studies. Okay, it emphasizes on exploring social phenomena rather than testing of preset hypotheses. Okay, so in other types of research, specifically in quantitative research, and sometimes in some forms of qualitative research also, we work with some assumptions, okay, hypotheses which were formed prior to conducting the research. So there we are trying to just test those hypotheses. Here in ethnographic studies, we do not test hypotheses. We try to explore social phenomena. So we start with absolute zero hypothesis, no hypothesis at all. Okay, and we try to explore what is happening, the event that is happening, the phenomena that is happening, why someone is behaving like that, why something is occurring like that. So we try to explore that. Okay, so it focuses on describing the culture of a group in very detailed and complex manner. involves engaging in extensive field work, where data collection is mainly by interviews, symbols, artifacts, observations, and many other sources of data. Okay. It is field based, so you do not work in labs, or you do not just analyze textual data. You go out in the field. Okay, you observe people, you do interviews, you conduct interviews, you do some survey, you make some observation, and take some field notes, and then you try to analyze the data based on those. Okay, so it's field based and is conducted in the settings in which real people actually live, rather than in laboratories where the researcher controls the elements of the behavior to be observed or measured, right? It's a holistic approach to the study of cultural systems. Okay, so basically we are studying the culture in this case, right? A process of discovery, making inferences, and continuing inquiries in an attempt to achieve maximum validity. You see, we can only reach validity in qualitative research when you have sufficient amount of data. So here, the sufficient amount of data we can actually get when we have made the sufficient amount of inquiry. We have asked questions, we have tried to look into different sources, like that. Okay, then only we can have maximum amount of data, and that will ensure the validity of that particular research. Okay, this is an open-ended emergent learning process and is highly flexible and creative process. So ethnographic study is also open-ended. So you start with nothing in mind. You start from scratch. As you go, you learn. You learn about the process, you learn about the methods, you learn to recognize the patterns, you keep on modifying the process, and you try to be creative as much as possible. You will see that if you go and check the some old documentaries of BBC and Discovery People and like that, you will see that different anthropologists and sociologists, they have actually gone to live with the tribes, okay, of Amazon, or African different tribes, and all those different places. They actually stayed there, they performed all their rituals, and I remember in one such documentary, it was shown that the researcher actually stayed with them, and that particular tribe, they had a culture that if someone stayed with them for a fixed number of days, and they could perform some of those tasks which were defined, they would accept that person coming from a different background as one of their own. And in this process, this acceptance, this welcoming this new person was actually done using a specific type of ritual, where the person will have to go through burns. There were certain burns which were made in his body, some tattoos and all. So this researcher actually went through the pain of getting those tattoos and those burns, just to complete the ritual. Okay, so you have to be extremely creative, okay, and flexible in order to understand the culture, the rituals, and the the reasons behind such rituals of a particular culture. Okay, it is ethnographic study is interpretative, reflexive, and constructivist process. So you go on constructing the phenomena as you are discovering it. Requires the daily and continuous recording of field notes. The researcher tries to earn trust of the respondents. So this last part is very important. So the researcher, while conducting an ethnographic research, you will not be able to conduct it unless you have gained the trust of the people whom you are studying. Okay, so researchers in the in the past, actually they have gone through great extents to gain their trust, to make them trust them, so that they can actually get the data. Okay, so all these are the different key features of ethnographic studies, right? So I know our time is up, so I'll stop here today. And in the next class, we will continue the discussion on ethnographic studies. And after that, we will move on to the next topic. So thank you for your patient listening. If you have any specific question, please feel free to ask. If there's any question or any concern, clarification you need, go on. Okay, so if that's clear to all of you, then I think we can move on. So Farah, it's over to you. Thank you all the participants for your patient listening.
Yes, ma'am. We can close the session now. Students, if you have any doubt, you can ask ma'am. Anything related to study material or any concept. Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. We can close the session now.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.